Hi, I'm Linda Fox. I'm senior reporter with PhocusWire. I'm in the PhocusWire studio at the Phocuswright Conference. Delighted to welcome Klaus Kohlmayr. He's chief evangelist and development officer for IDeaS, and Sean Fitzpatrick, who is CEO of Lighthouse, formerly OTA Insight. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Great to be here.
At your conference earlier this year, Klaus, Joe Pettigrew talked about the idea of a revenue maximizer. And it was more like an attitude around revenue management rather than a sort of role. So just talk to me about that and whether you think hotels are embracing that idea.
No, I love that concept that Joe Pettigrew, who's the chief commercial officer of Starwood Capital, kind of put out there at our client summit earlier this year about really thinking outside the box and challenging the status quo.
Right.
He gave like 3 or 4 very succinct points of, in his mind, what a revenue maximizer does and how it differentiates between that and a revenue manager. I think some people do it, and I've known revenue maximizers, over my last 20 years in the hotel industry, and they really do stand out from the rest of a revenue manager. Does everyone embrace it? No, but I think more and more people are embracing the concept of, really looking outside the box and really being creative and really challenging everyone around them on how to drive revenues, how to maximize revenues better.
Yeah. Would you agree with that, Sean, in what you're seeing out there?
Yeah, no, certainly. I think obviously, IDeaS is an example of a company that's been driving sort of the use of technology to really maximize revenue. And to Klaus's point, the best technology works when it's fully adopted and embraced by, humans, or in this case, revenue managers. And so I think if anything, in particular, when you see sort of waves of new technology and innovation, obviously AI being the most recent one, if anything, it kind of accelerates the adoption. And so, I think probably the most exciting thing for the industry is to see that revenue management, revenue maximization is actually becoming much more widespread. And so it's moving beyond the professional, maybe chains and large organizations now down into other parts of the market. So definitely, I think this is something we're seeing accelerate.
Okay. Now, as technologists and vendors, that there's a lot of technical debt out there, and taking up your idea there about, the best technology is the one that's adopted and fully implemented. But we've had this, this barrier, this attitude, maybe it's a resources barrier, challenge, of companies really not moving forward, or perhaps not moving forward fast enough. Is that changing in the hotel landscape?
Yeah, look, I think as we talked about briefly earlier, this sort of 2 years from 2021, there was almost a complete stop to all technology adoption and projects. But certainly with the advent of cloud, which is, it's a different type of technology adoption, you can adopt technology in a sort of piecemeal and gradual fashion.
Sure.
So there's still a tendency in the industry to take these large transformational projects that take multiple years to implement. It doesn't have to be that way. You can actually release and unlock a lot of value in smaller steps and increments. And so we're certainly seeing that with Lighthouse. Our tools are specifically designed to be simple, really easy to adopt. And I think that's actually what's really helping drive and accelerate our growth. Yeah.
Klaus, similar, you're seeing when you talk to your clients? Customers?
Yeah, I'm always an optimist, and I'm always excited about what's happening and how many people are embracing technology. Is it as fast as we all want? No, but do you feel, is there a lot of investment in technology migrations and upgrades?
Yeah,
and
is there momentum?
There is. You can see all the big chains investing heavily in technology and cloud platforms. We were talking to AWS last night, who is our partner. And they were saying that a lot of them have actually completed or about to complete their cloud migrations.
Okay.
And there's going to be a whole bunch of new innovation built on top of what they have, done foundationally over the last couple of years. So I feel over the next 18 months, 2 years, we're going to see some pretty exciting innovation coming out based on all the foundational work they've done over the last couple of years.
Yeah. Now, is it going to be innovation, or is it just going to be incremental, which adds a couple of % to the bottom line, which in travel, let's face it, is fantastic? But, talking to people around the conference the last couple of days, people are saying incremental. They're not seeing an innovation boom. Thoughts on that? Sean, kick us off.
Yeah, look, it obviously, travel is a huge ecosystem. And depending on the sophistication of the operation, it can either be incremental or it can be a boom, right?
Fair point.
And so, what we're seeing is that, obviously the global chains in themselves, they slowed down for a couple of years. So they're going through very significant projects right now to upgrade their infrastructure, adopt new technologies. And again, cloud facilitates a lot of that. But even down to the sort of the independent segment, we are seeing that there's an appetite to actually adopt technology in ways that maybe there hasn't been in the past. Part of that is driven by just a huge exodus of talent from the industry over 2021, as people just went to look for opportunities outside hospitality. So now there's this sort of it's almost like a brain drain from a hospitality perspective.
Yes.
And that is still impacting the industry today. So technology can actually really help overcome that. And so I think that's also maybe driving some of the acceleration and adoption.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Did you want to add anything?
No, I think it's really key, and I think there is an acceptance technology can make hospitality better.
Yeah.
Right. It's not one or the other. It's not man or machine. It's man and machine. Right. So using technology to make better decisions, using technology to get better information, using technology to create better service experiences and service moments. I think in general the acceptance is there. Does everyone embrace it fully? No. There's a million hotels out there. Yep. There's still a lot of ground to cover, but we can see the gradual change, and the industry is not an industry that embraces innovation. It's the industry embraces incremental change,
yes,
for sure. So we'll see more of that rather than groundbreaking new features coming out overnight.
Yeah,
and just to add to that, I mean, to Klaus's point, I think hoteliers should think about how and where they're innovating and adopting, because, and this is not because we're both sort of commercially focused companies, but if you focus on technology and improvement on the top line revenue growth, then that funds, the investment in operational efficiencies and gains. And so I think if you're selective about where you invest, it doesn't have to be transformational in terms of technology, but actually can have a real transformational on your bottom line.
Is there an expectation from companies that technologies like cloud will bring the cost of technology down, even though the investment will be upfront and then over time? And is that expectation realistic?
I think it's two things. It's not so much about bringing costs down, but does it make you more productive and more efficient? Can you do more things at the same cost?
Sure.
Can you be more efficient? Can you be more productive? Can you be more flexible? I think that's really the key. We don't hear as many conversations about can we lower the cost, and what else can we do based on the new capabilities we have,
right,
or the flexibility we have. Right. It's more about what else is possible and how far can we push it, then let's reduce costs.
Yeah, so driving efficiency. Yeah. So can you give me some examples of where we're using data like we never have been before?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the innovations we introduced actually over the course of the disruption, through 2021 was the use of upper funnel search data and then, correlating that with rates information, event information, et cetera. Because what we discovered through that time was, well, first of all, the industry kind of lost visibility because most of the forecasting was based on historical hotel performance. So there really was no sort of historical precedent for what happened. And so as a consequence, most of the forecasts, became irrelevant or redundant. So we started to curate different types of data that was much more around traveler intent. And then, through that, bringing different types of insights. And so now the industry's recovered. You can see the predictability in the traditional forecast improving. But when you get beyond 60 days, between 60 and 360 days, there's actually a lot more insight in that sort of traveler intent data, because it's looking beyond the typical booking horizon. So I think that's a great example of how, an interesting and new use of data can actually start to transform how we think about real practical use cases that generate a return.
Yeah, it's really joining the dots like never before, isn't it?
Yeah, and companies like Lighthouse make it possible for us to actually, turn that data into decisions and automate at scale. So what we've seen is really, we've built a complete new platform that's highly scalable, that gives kind of revenue management pricing in the power of your hand.
Yeah.
And it's in place at 10,000 hotels. And that's only possible because we get more data at scale, and we have the capability to turn that very efficiently into decisions.
Yeah. Now, without data, we wouldn't have generative AI. So where are you seeing the opportunities? And give us a little bit of advice for companies as they start to experiment. Go ahead, guys.
Yeah, from our perspective, we're owned by SAS, which is one of the biggest analytics companies in the world, and we look very deeply at AI. We have this concept of responsible AI.
Sure.
And we're probably very careful of what we do with it and how we deploy it, because we know that there's some drawbacks of rushing into it too quickly. So we see applications in customer service, in productivity enhancements. We don't see applications at the moment on, for example, making our algorithms better, because one thing we've heard very strongly is ChatGPT is not good at math. So we're more focusing on the back of house efficiency, productivity. What can we do with the new capabilities to make our customers more successful?
Yeah.
And that's where we're going first.
Yeah. And I know you are starting to experiment with some AI, and you talked about how some of the direction it could go in. So just share some of that with us.
Yeah. So just picking up on Klaus's point, I mean, there's obviously a huge hype cycle around AI, but it still comes down to you need really good inputs, really good data to essentially enable the models, because otherwise you end up with all sorts of biases and ultimately poor decision making. So, our heritage is in BI and data. So what we're looking at is more, how do we essentially make it easier for people to interpret what they're seeing in the data? Obviously we simplify huge volumes, but how do we make it even easier, right? So that you don't need to be a revenue maximizer. You can be maybe a sort of an entry-level revenue manager, somebody starting their career.
Or a reception manager, and you can see what's going on a daily basis. Yeah,
exactly. And so I think, for us, it's AI is a means to supplement knowledge and to enable people to make better decisions. In some cases, it's to help automate those decisions. But we're going to start, through our platform over the next 6 to 12 months. You'll start to see that sort of capability emerge where, rather than looking at dashboards, you'll have the ability to interpret and potentially query those so that you get a little bit more context to what you're seeing. Okay.
So as we round up here, let's just project forward a little bit to 2024. Do you think there's going to be M&A, just to start off, in the hotel tech space?
What I've heard, it'll be pretty slow. I mean, there will always be M&A for companies that are doing something significantly different and have proven that they can be profitable and proven the business model. But what we have heard this week is that it's going to be significantly slower than even back 10 years ago. So
is it needed?
Some people have talked about the winter of M&A next year. We'll see if that happens.
Interesting.
And your question was?
No, is it needed? Do we need to bring some of this fragmentation together, or is it pretty much?
I think we need to bring data together. Do we need to bring companies together? I'm not sure, but if the data flows freely between different providers, if we come together as technology partners, and make the data flow efficiently to provide value to the hotel industry, that's really the key, right? Companies don't need to get together in order to come together to do that. It's more about the data getting together.
Well, I mean, you're owned by a much bigger entity,
we
so
are.
yeah.
I would say, again, picking up on what Klaus said, we first of all, incredibly exciting to see at Phocuswright that there is this really vibrant startup community, despite some challenging funding environment. From our perspective, we look at M&A as, we are in the business of solving problems for hoteliers. There are some unbelievable companies that are, still at early stage that have great intellectual property, fantastic teams. I think the industry will benefit from more platforms. And so, bringing more of those solutions together into a single platform will only benefit everybody. So I think M&A is a fantastic opportunity for hospitality tech more generally, because ultimately it will benefit the customer and the hoteliers themselves.
So you did just mention startups and the funding environment, and it has been really challenging. So is it going to get any easier for startups in the next year or so?
Funding-wise, probably not. But look, good companies, good ideas, good startups with a really sound business case. I mean, the funding is still available. There's still a significant amount of capital that that needs to be deployed, as they say in the investment game. And so, look, for great companies, for great founders, they should be very, very hopeful. I think there's the desires there, and I think here at Phocuswright this week, we've seen that there are some really incredible startups that are succeeding. So investors love to see success.
Yeah. And Klaus, just to finish up there, any kind of gaps, any opportunities where you think startups might look to kind of exploit?
I always love kind of when things get automated and help people make decisions faster. And as Sean said, you know, if you have a startup that has some advance in your product, and and you've proven in the past that you can exit and create a value for your investors, you will always find money.
Yeah.
But I'm the reason why I come here to Phocuswright is to do exactly that. Understand, where the companies are, where the brains are, what people are working on. Because typically, what happens after a few years, a lot of these companies become very successful. So it's great to have the insight here.
Yeah, great. Klaus, thanks for joining us. Sean, likewise. Great to have you in the studio.
Thank you.